Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast, where your host, Cassandra Crawley-Mayo, helps you break free from obstacles and live life on your terms. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration. Tune in as we dive into captivating conversations with experts and explore topics that will ignite your passion and drive. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Let's dive in.
Out there to all of my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way. And I am your host. My name is Cassandra Crawley-Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, not only is my podcast titled Is Your Way in Your Way, but so is my book. So this podcast is for individuals who are in their way. Now, you're probably thinking about what does that mean? But let me ask you this. Before that, let me tell you this. We talk about topics related to personal development, personal improvement, even some business development and business improvement, and they will enable you to do some self-reflection. And my prayer has always been, it'll be something that you have heard that will enable you to pivot and say, you know what, based on this conversation today, I am going to start acting on what I used to dream about, and I'm going to fulfill my dream. So let me ask you, before we dive into today's powerful episode, I want to ask you something. Are you in your own way? I already asked, but I'm going to say it again. Are you in your own way? If you ever question your worth, doubted your purpose, or felt stuck in fear, this podcast is your space to break free. Now, which is interesting to me is 76% of people report feeling stuck either with their career, their relationships, their health, or sense of purpose. Are you in that 76%? So if you're listening today, the show where faith meets freedom and purpose gets real, we're going to talk to a woman who's walked through struggle and came out soaring. So now let's get into it. And I want to introduce you to Charisse Walker. How are you doing, Charisse?
I'm doing so fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad to have you. I can't wait to dive into this conversation. First of all, let me let my guests know the title of our podcast today is How to Achieve What You Only Dreamed About. Now, before we ask and delve into these questions, and Charisse, I want to know, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Charisse Walker. Yep, you
Okay,
are.
Charisse. All right. I'd like to read your bio to my listeners because they are going to want to know what's qualifying you to achieve what you only dream about. So let me just tell them a little bit of your background. Charisse Walker is a definition of resilience in motion. From food stamps to financial freedom, she's a mother, a mogul, and motivator who turned adversity into a legacy. As an author, Emmy-nominated TV host, real estate powerhouse, and founder of the Unbreakable Mompreneur podcast. She empowers women to rewrite their stories boldly, unapologetically, and on their own terms. Whether she's coaching entrepreneurs, speaking on stages, or guiding couples towards a lasting relationship, Charisse proves that what's beneath the surface is often where the breakthrough begins. I like that. Author of Flipping the Iceberg, and she's starting on another book, and we'll talk about that. And she's discovering and celebrating what lies beneath the surface in your relationships. So we're going to find out, how can you achieve what you only dream about? Now, I already mentioned, Charisse, how number one, what my understanding of what I've read and what I've observed, you're very stubborn, and you're resilient, and you always say, don't expose your weakness. For example, one of the things she said is, when a person gets on stage and they want to speak, don't get on stage and say, oh, I'm so nervous because this is my first time being on stage. She said, don't ever expose your weakness. Don't believe that. And start believing in yourself and what's important. And with all that said, your characteristics, Charisse, were all those characteristics. I want you to share with the audience, my listeners, what was your backstory for you to have these type of characteristics?
Yeah, that's a long answer. I think that I think back to, and this is really pathetic. And when I was in sixth grade, I remember going out on recess. So school had just restarted, and fifth grade was fantastic. So to even go a little more, my parents moved. We moved a lot when I was a kid, and so I started elementary school in Utah, and then I went to California. And so we found out that my birth date, like it fell at a certain time where I had to wait to start in Utah, but in California, I could have started a year earlier. So I don't remember this because this didn't happen later, but I ended up skipping fourth grade, long story short, and went from third grade to fifth grade. And so I showed up in fifth grade, and all of a sudden everyone's like, well, why are you in this grade? Why aren't you in fourth? So I had to work really hard because I didn't realize in fourth grade, that's when you learned long division. That's when you learned history. That's when, those type of things. So I ended up basically having to learn 2 years worth of stuff. And so my class was phenomenal. My classmates, my teacher was phenomenal. Probably my favorite teacher ever in the world. And so then I get to sixth grade and expecting that same type of thing, like it's all the same people, but I was shunned. I don't know what happened. And so I remember recess, and I talk about this in my book, that I went up and asked two girls if I could play, and they looked at me and they just laughed and kind of turned. And that was my first time ever experiencing rejection. And so I remember never feeling like I fit in from then on. Right. In my high school, so I got very, very involved in lots of things because I figured if I could get involved in things, then I had control over who I got to interact with. And I didn't have to feel like I had to play at recess because I was always busy in these other activities. So I was voted most involved, which is a pathetic thing to be voted. But so that's where I think I started. I have to overachieve. I have to do stuff. I have to be involved. All these things. And so I think from there it was just do. And I think that's where it kind of started, I guess, to answer your question.
Wow, that's interesting. So in other words, you were like, all right, there's a little part of that sounds like you were kind of a people pleaser.
Oh,
but yet, but you wanted to fit in. So you did whatever it took to fit in. If you didn't want to do those things and get involved, you still got involved because that was the way that you felt that you would be a part of something. So now I am understanding about resilience, and don't tell anybody about your weakness, and you believe in yourself. So then for there, you have a lot of, your background is phenomenal to me. You were in real estate, you still are in real estate. You started a school, is that correct? You started teaching, you're a mom, you have 6 children. But yet you talked about trauma to triumph. And what I didn't hear from there is the trauma. Tell us what the trauma was.
Well, really personally, as a kid, and I didn't even realize this, that there was a neighbor that, he was an older gentleman and got a little too handsy with a lot of kids on my block in my neighborhood. And I never realized anything until 7th grade when I started having these flashbacks and things that I was afraid to talk to boys. I was afraid to talk to male teachers. And I couldn't understand it. And that's when I went and talked with, I'm going to leave those people out of it because they swore if I ever brought in their personal life that, but I started having some conversations and realizing that there were things in my childhood that I didn't know. And so I became very submissive and very obedient, I think, to men, especially. And so it wasn't, when I graduated college and my very first job out of college, tons of sexual harassment, just things that I would never have expected. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And so it was that's some of the trauma there that being obedient and submissive and doing what I'm told because I had to. In addition, like I love my dad dearly. Like I love my parents. But my dad was a Vietnam vet, and he came home to people throwing things at him, food and objects. And he wasn't revered. He was told how horrible a baby killer and different things, even if he wasn't. But so he came home to that and he bottled all that up. And the things that he went through, he had his own PTSD that, again, at that time, that word didn't even exist, or those acronyms. Sure. And so he grew up very strict, and so we had to do what my dad said. And then it was a very difficult childhood because of some of the things, the dynamics with some siblings as well. And so the relationship with my siblings and my dad were not positive. And so my dad would come into my room. He only did this once that I remember, but just bawling, saying, Charisse, please don't turn out like your sisters. Please don't, And not that my sisters would do anything bad. They were just difficult because of their own issues as well. And so it wasn't until a couple of years ago that my dad actually approached all four of us as siblings or children and said, I am going to go to the VA. Like he would never ask for help. And finally we had to write impact statements. And again, it didn't really occur to me the issues and things that happened in my life that were impacted by my childhood. And so those are the traumas. Those are the icebergs that, we all have icebergs from a little 6th grade playground. How would that have impacted me to where I don't want to open up to people, or I started taking an inventory, and it wasn't until I got divorced that I realized I got some work to do on myself, especially because I have a bunch of kids. So I think that those things are kind of how it started.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I always said, I actually have a chapter in my book in regards to how your childhood has a lot to do with your adulthood. Yeah. And another reason why I'm glad you said it, because right now, from trauma to triumph, you've triumphed. I mean, we still a work in progress, but to let individuals know, regardless, we all have work to do, but yet you somewhat got through it. And that's why I want to say, doing all of this stuff, the individuals in the school that, kind of rejected you, and, your divorce, your family, how you grew up, the trauma. Did you always have, well, let me ask you, well, first of all, what was your dream? Did you have a dream back then?
So I loved kids. I babysat a lot. That's actually how I paid for my college. And so it's so funny. Before I even knew how you had kids, I wanted to have 22 kids because I loved babies. I know. Don't worry. That's not it at all.
Okay. All right.
And I realized what it took to have them. Right. And so I always wanted to be a mom. That was my dream. I think. That was your dream. But in addition to that, I realized that I actually wanted to be a high school counselor.
Okay.
And then I got to college and that completely changed. But I think growing up, I knew that I'd always wanted to help people. And so whatever it was going to be, I wanted to help people.
Okay. All right. Because the title is How to Achieve What You Only Dream About. Yeah. Oh, what you're saying is you did achieve that.
I did.
But yet, as life happens, you had other dreams, right? And so was your dream ever being in real estate?
No, never.
Okay. Why did you segue into real estate? And you still do real estate, but that's not what you that's not the only thing you do.
No, it's not. So at 20, I graduated college, got a job. Like I told you, it wasn't a positive experience. So I left that pretty abruptly. And I got this interview to work at a college. It was a temp agency. And so I was working in the bursar office, which I don't even know what that was. It's like the bursar. Okay. And so I was there for like 2 months, and I have some people approach me and they said, Charisse, you graduated in sociology, right? And I said, yeah, I did. They're like, have you ever thought of teaching? I said, well, I used to want to be a high school counselor. So yeah, I've thought about teaching. And they said, okay, well, how would you feel about teaching this class?
Cool.
And I'm like, okay, great. And they said, well, this was like Friday night. They said, think about it over the weekend. Let us know what you think. And I said, okay. Monday morning, they approached me like 11 a.m. They said, okay, what do you think, Charisse? I said, sure, I'll give it a try. And they said, great. They put the book down on my desk and said, you teach in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 22, and most of these people are men that are much older than me. And so I'm thinking, okay, now what do I do? And so I had no clue, like the teacher was fired abruptly, and I had no clue what they had learned, what they talked about. There was nothing. And so I just looked over the topic, which I was very familiar with, and said, okay. And I remember going to the door, and I said, right before I opened the door, a thought hit me. I have two choices here. I can walk in and say, I have no idea. I've never taught before. I have no idea what I'm doing, and they didn't tell me anything. Right. Or I can go in and I can say, hey guys, I'm here to teach about this, and let's go. Right. So of course I chose the latter. And like and I talk about this as well, but I feel like if I would have lifted my arms, I would have probably just had showering sweat coming because I was so nervous. Right. But long story short, they hired me on full time. And I taught for 7 years, and then I became the dean, and then I became the director, and then I opened up a school. And so it was one of those things where that was my dream. Like, I love changing lives. I love the impact and the way that it went. And so fast forward a lot, some things happened, and I got to be a stay-at-home mom. I got remarried. I went through a divorce, and then a couple years later, I ended up finding my current husband, and so I got to be a stay-at-home mom. But we were on food stamps because I chose to stay home, and so it was a very short stint. But we got into because of a family member and a best friend, we were $400,000 in the hole because we had lent them some money. So we were in a really bad spot. Yeah. In real estate, we started flipping homes, and I realized that I'd get my license. And so I got my license and realized very quickly that we could do really well that way. So I love it because for me, you're educating people on one of the biggest financial decisions of their life, and how can I help them not screw that up? So that's how I got into real estate.
Okay. Well, how do you balance entrepreneurship and motherhood? How do you do that?
You don't balance.
Okay.
Let's be honest. I feel very off a lot. And so I try now to do my real estate during the times that my children are gone or like at school. So I've been doing a lot more where here's my working hours is during school. I hate not being home with them now when they get home from school. So I'm trying to do that. It's not always successful. And then my husband, if he's home at night, he can be with them so I can go and show homes at night. And so there's not a balance. I'm starting to have that guilt mom feeling again, where I realize I'm out of whack, that it is taking way too much time because it is the season right now. But my kids are very involved in it as well. Open houses. I have 4 older kids. All of them have had their turn doing open houses.
Oh, okay.
And, so that I can be home with the younger ones as well.
Wow. So you engage your kids into what you do.
They're all very involved. Yeah.
Right. But quite frankly, you've not really overcome it. Right. And, or what are you going to say?
No, I think, as an entrepreneur, we can always say balance, but life isn't a balance. It's a juggle. This falls up in the air. My mom just came to stay with us. We went and did a mother-daughter thing for the first time ever. And it was crazy. And I remember going like this, because there's all these balls up in the air. And I'm like, they're starting to fall. They're starting to fall. And I think that sometimes, it's great and everything just goes right in line, and other times it doesn't. But I think for me, it's the communication and relationship I have that I really do try to seek out my children at least 20 minutes a day or something, or call them if they don't live with me, to create that relationship. And so being a mom is very important, and them knowing how I feel, what I want, and helping them realize that they can achieve anything they want and they don't need to settle. That's, I think, my driving force. That's my why for what I do. I want to be example for them.
Okay. So because the title is How to Achieve What You Only Dream About, what are you dreaming about now?
So I dream about honestly being on stage and impacting other people, because that message is really my message. I'll never forget the very first time I was pregnant with my second child. She would be my number 3 though, because I had twins, and I didn't know I was pregnant. And so I was at a college graduation with all my students, and I had some of them for 2 years, some of them for 4 years. And I remember them walking across the graduation stage. And I remember the relationships I had with these, that they told me their stories of, they're the first to ever graduate. They're the first to ever graduate high school. They're the first to, they were told that they're dumb, they're stupid, they'll never amount to anything by their teachers, by their parents, by their family. It doesn't matter. Wow. And to watch them walk across that stage and to hear the people that for 2 years they told me were their biggest naysayers, to hear those people cheer for them.
Yeah.
Life changing. So for me, it was, my mission is to help people realize they can do whatever they've put their mind to it, that if they really do want to do it, they're the only people in their way, and that they should never listen to those naysayers. Like I had one, my twins were 3. They just turned 3, but with my second one, a lot happened with that second one, that I remember coming back. I decided to take the full maternity leave. So I was gone for 3 months. And the week after I came back, a new dean, he comes in, did not like women. And he said, I remember him turning his chair around with this smug look on his face. He's like, guess what, Charisse? You're no longer going to have a job after this semester. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, you don't have a master's degree, so, you're out of a job. And I said, that's not true. And he goes, nope, it's true. Accreditation has changed, and we're just going to have to let you go. And so I immediately walked out, called headquarters and said, is this true? They're like, no, Charisse, he's just, he wasn't the dean very long. But I said, I will never let that be an excuse. And so my twins were 3. My baby was 3 months old. I enrolled in a master's degree program that day. And I started the following week, and I took a 2-year program into 15 months because I wanted, and somebody and working full time, because my ex would not. And so somebody very, very dear to me guilted me all the time that I was being selfish, that I wasn't being a mom, that how dare I don't need a master's degree, and different things. And so because of that, I just said no. And when I got that degree, fast-tracked it, it literally doubled my income. I was able to become a dean at a different school. So it changed my family. And had I listened to that person, I would probably, I don't know where I'd be today, because it would but it's those type of things that if you really want to achieve it, like I had 3 kids under the age of 3, working full time and going to school double full time, because I doubled it up. And so it's you can do whatever you want.
Right. You're resilient. That's one of your characteristics, girl. That's powerful. Now you want to speak, and I believe when you wrote your book, The Iceberg, let me see, it's titled, what's the name of it? Flipping the Iceberg.
Yep.
Right? Yep. What triggered you to write that book?
My kids and what I had gone through. When I left my then husband, my grandma thought that it was all my fault and told me if I would just quit my job, my ex would step up. And I'm like, Grandma, if I did that, we would be homeless. And it was probably 2 years afterwards that she came to me and apologized and said, Charisse, I'm sorry, I had no idea. And I said, Grandma, I know. Because he comes across as this great person, and we have a great relationship. To this day, we have a great relationship above the surface. If we go lower than that, it's not a good thing. And so I think when people look at somebody, if they look at you, they look at me, and they can think whatever they want, and they make an assumption. Yeah. But there's a real person underneath that surface. And with an iceberg, 10% above the water, 90% below. So if you can flip it, now you get to know the real person. And that's always been like my mission. The kids that were bullied in school, those are the people that I was drawn to because I felt bad. And to try to understand why they do what they do, which is why I have a degree in sociology, to try to understand humans and the society and what gets you to be who you are. And so with an iceberg and flipping it, first of all, we have our own trauma. Those are our icebergs. So that affects our relationship. So if we can figure out what those are and heal ourselves from it, so we can make healthy decisions. And then from there, once we find the person that we want to marry, that we can now flip that iceberg and really get to know who they are before you say I do. Because I talk about it, I call my first husband was Barbie's Ken. Like, he looked the part, he was everything. And on my little checklist that I wrote, he checked all those boxes. But the person he was dealing with his own demons, as was I. And so I think, had we done a little more research and talked to each other, like what I read about the book, we probably would have gotten married.
Okay. Your checklist. Let's talk about your checklist. And you also do work around relationships. And let's say you're on stage. What would you talk about? What's your dream talk? What would you talk about?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. There's two that the first one is really, again, achieving your dreams. Like, what is your purpose? What is your passion? What is that little thing down? Because I believe we all have a calling in our lives, that we were put on this earth to accomplish something. And it could be more than just one thing, but we all have different talents for a reason. And so if we can figure out what those talents are, and what is your little intuition telling you that you should be doing with your life, and are you achieving that? Are you living up to your potential? That's the other thing, is what is your potential, and helping people with that. And so that's like, live your potential and don't let anybody stop you. So that would be one of them. The other one is making sure that you don't feel trapped. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like you are in a place that you feel like you can't get out of, whether that be a job, whether that be a career, which is the same thing, whether that be a relationship. And so how do we work through that to be able to live our dream?
Okay. Many of my listeners, that's what I would call the purpose of Is Your Way in Your Way, because they're stuck, they're trapped. They're individuals that also, there's another side, is really fixated on their purpose. I say that because I was fixated, like, what is my purpose? And I'm so hung up on purpose, I don't really get a whole lot done because I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is. So how do you guide your clients in discovering their purpose?
Ready to design your dream life? Join Cassandra Crawley-Mayo's Create and Design Your Best Life workshop. Break free from self-doubt and obstacles and step into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Click the link in the description to register now. Don't wait. Spaces are limited. Start living your best life today.
That is a great thing, which I actually even struggled with for about 3 years, because I was the same. Like, but I think I should do this, but I'm drawn to be doing this. And my advice would be, let's start. Okay, so what are you doing right now? And let's just start on what can you do right now to help you take that step to the next? Because for me, it was like, I would have never thought my podcast, Unbreakable Mompreneurs, and my book, Flipping the Iceberg, and real estate, like, what in the heck? How do those intertwine? And so when I finally sat down and went, oh, okay, I see an underlying message. And so what are you doing in your life that you enjoy, that you can take a baby step with right now? And that's all. And I'm not saying quit your job because you hate it and now let's go become an entrepreneur. You can do both things at the same time. Let's start this on the side and let's take little baby steps. And as we start to grow this and it's starting to take off, now do you need to put full-time effort into this or not? Start with 5 hours a week, 10 hours, 20 hours. And then eventually, yes, you can jump off the cliff and go full-time, but you don't have to right now.
Okay. Because I think my coach told me something the other day, and I'm like, but I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And when you get overwhelmed, you don't get anything done.
Yeah.
And she says you're overwhelmed because you're not prioritizing. I'm
Right.
like, what do you mean I'm not prioritizing? And, there's certain things and stages in life that for example, if your kids are young, you prioritize your kids first.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you can't do it all.
Exactly.
And so my listeners are struggling with, okay, I have to keep working. I have kids, but what I want to do is start a podcast. And based on that, then you start thinking, but how am I going to do that? And I always tell people you can't do it by yourself. Yeah. If you got to get a coach or somebody that you admire, that you can talk to them about it, because that's going to help them start. That's like an accountability partner. Mm-hmm. So I just, so when you talk about your dream now is to be on stage, to talk to, you have two dreams actually, live your potential and not feeling trapped. Mm-hmm. How would you, and I like the fact that you talked about there are people that want to do things, but they feel trapped. How would you help them to move forward?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, you mentioned a coach, and I remember somebody I went on a spending spree, I should say, for about 3 years. And anybody that I felt could help me, I threw money at them. Like the amount of money that I spent was ridiculous and unnecessary, because I got into a point where I can have 5 different coaches all at the same time. You can't. You absolutely cannot. Like pick one, go full in, like jump in with both feet. So get a coach. That's the thing I love that you said. Definitely need to get a coach. And decide. So my coach, one of them, he said, you're having a hard time. All of you guys, you're wasting time. Just decide, right? Just decide on one thing. And the third talk I would talk about is seasons. I did actually give a speech about that once, to a group of people, that to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under, so I think it was in the Bible that talks about that. And we do have seasons in our life, and you need to be patient and you need to enjoy those seasons. With my kids, when they were little babies, I even have a picture. I sat there for hours just staring at my baby because I didn't think I'd be able to have her. And so because of that, you have to enjoy the time that you have. And if you're constantly looking at, well, I can't wait until, and I can't wait until, and you're looking towards the future and you're forgetting about the here and now, then you're missing the whole purpose of life.
Exactly.
You have to enjoy the journey. And so for people that are struggling, it's get a coach. But I want you to be very, very strategic, because there's a lot of people out there that say, pay me $25,000 and I will blah. It's not $25,000, and you need to make sure that person is experiencing what they're teaching and successful. And so you need to do your research, and maybe it's like YouTube University, right? There's a lot of free stuff out there right now. When I did my real estate investing, I had learned for 1.5 years, because I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. And so for 1.5 years, I just sucked up as much information as I could. And then I went to one meeting and they said, stop, just go do it. And so from that meeting, I drove, found my first flip, and that's when my life changed. And so I did it. I took a step. And so that's what you are, is where do you want to be? Where are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And now let's backtrack. How many calls do you need to make? How many, do you need to send out mailers? Do you need to do, for me, direct mail, or different things? There's different steps. Yeah. So what can we focus on? And then the 12-week year is a beautiful book. Let's pick 3 things for 12 weeks, and we're going to focus on those. Stop overwhelming yourself. Just here's your baby step. Here's your baby step. Here's your baby step.
Right. Make a decision and act on it. Yeah. And as we were talking, we were talking about, for me, when it's time But I always say, when God says, well done, my good and faithful servant, and it's time for me to go, I don't want any regrets.
Yeah.
As you indicated, the things that were in my heart that I want to do, I'm not going to say at the end, I wish I didn't work so hard. I'm going to say, I didn't fulfill my purpose. I always wanted to write a book. I never did that. And I always wanted to speak on stages, and I never did that because you never did it. It's nobody else's fault but you.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend individuals get your book, and please tell them about the next book that you started.
Yeah. So the next one is Flipping the Iceberg After the I Do. So if you end up, you're married, right? And I didn't get to work with you before that because I wasn't around, which that's the other thing I want our listeners to really think about is by you not doing what God's purpose for you is here, those people are waiting for you, and you're missing out on the opportunity to help them change their lives to become the people that they are supposed to become. So if you're waiting to launch, just know that, like for me, it's how many marriages are falling apart right now because I haven't written this book. And I'm not saying I'm going to save them. That's not what I'm saying. But so the next book is called Flipping the Iceberg After the I Do. And so it's from anyone from newlyweds, like, oh my gosh, we just got married, we don't even know each other, to the nearly deads. I don't know how to say that nicely, but where they've been married for a very, very long time and they've lost touch with each other. And how can they reconnect?
That's good. That sounds like another podcast. Because relationships are very critical in our lives, and unfortunately, listeners, our time is running out, and perhaps I'll have Charisse back on and we'll just talk about relationships, because I don't know who would not want to hear about relationships. Relationships, never underestimate the value of relationships. Yeah. And the most important one is, in the event you decide to get married, it has to be kind of right on, So Charisse, I know our time is a close. Is there anything? Well, let me ask you, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my current website is CharisseWalker.com, under construction. Hopefully it'll be done pretty quickly. Unbreakable Mompreneurs. If you go there, you can find, whether it be relationships, real estate, or business, I can help you with any of those, if you want to find my book as well.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your time, your insights into harnessing resilience and balancing life demands and pursuing dreams. So hopefully you are inspired by your personal barriers and you achieve personal and your professional goals, my listeners. Again, Charisse, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight, and I love the characteristics that you have. And all that you've been through was for a reason. And I just cherish that, because all we go through is for a reason. It's a lesson, and let's use it. So I say, no test, no testimony, right? So again, thanks so much. God bless you. God bless my listeners. And as I say, bye for now.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying our empowering conversations, make sure you don't miss out on future episodes of Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. Stay in the loop with all the latest episodes. Join our mailing list over at CassandraCrawley.com. And before you go, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe now. Until next time, let's get ready to live your best life.